Whether you think that global cooperation is working or not is most likely closely related to how you see the development of the world during the last couple of decades. For some, the development has been one of more economic uncertainty, to a world with a higher paced working life and reduced security in the workforce. A world where production and whole industries are moving overseas to cut costs and rely on cheaper, low-skilled labor. You might see a world with increased crime, with a large influx of migrants that are pushing salaries down. A world where more attention and more resources are focused on groups that you do not belong to. A world where you have less opportunities than your parents, with increased cost of living making it more difficult to afford a home and other necessities. You might see a world that is depleting our local natural resources and failing to fight global climate change in a sufficient way. And we can discuss in numbers whether this is true or not, but on an individual level, it is. It is the reality for many people. But on a societal level, for most people, the world is clearly a better place to live today than 10, 20, 40 or 100 years ago. And one part of that development is the subject for this video, international cooperation. Even though some of the organizations on this list are military alliances established in response to its perceived adversaries, and some are highly, sometimes rightfully, criticized institutions. They together represent that we today in the world, more often than not, talk, discuss, negotiate, agree, and respectfully disagree. We criticize and protest more often than we take up arms. On the 24th of October 1945, the United Nations Charter was recognized by 51 independent states, marking the start of modern global cooperation after the end of World War II. Since then, every nation on Earth has joined the organization, many of them after gaining independence from their colonial powers or through the breakup of federations like the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia. 193 member states and 2 observer states, Vatican City and Palestine, are today represented in the General Assembly. The World Health Organization has 194 member states, excluding Liechtenstein, but including non-sovereign states of Cook Island and Niue. An important part of the United Nations is the Security Council, made up of 5 permanent members with full veto power in China, France, Russia, the UK and the US, and 10 temporary members, currently these nations marked in light blue. Within the UN we also find the Group of 77, founded in 1964, made up of now 134 low and middle income nations, founded to represent and enhance negotiating power for the less economically powerful nations. At the other end of the spectrum we find the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, with 38 member states, mainly high-income nations, established in 1948. 6 states are under negotiation for membership: Argentina, Brazil, Bulgaria, Croatia, Peru and Romania, and Malta and Ukraine has applied for membership. Negotiations with Russia was opened in 2007, stalled in 2014 and terminated in 2022. Let us move on to more regional organizations, starting in Europe. The European Union is the only observer organization in the UN with the right to speak in debates and submit proposals, and the organization has representation in many international organs and agreements, despite of course not being a sovereign state. It currently has 27 member states after the departure of the United Kingdom in 2020. While all nations are geographically in Europe, with the complex relations between several European states and their overseas territories, you can find European Union soil far outside the European continent. The nations marked in a darker blue has dropped their former national currency and joined the Eurozone. Iceland, Liechtenstein and Norway are members of the European Economic Area, and together with Switzerland they make up the European Free Trade Association, marked in green. Nations marked in orange are part of the Schengen area, abolishing border controls. The 7 nations marked in yellow are candidate nations for future membership in the EU, but talks with Turkey is at an effective standstill. Bosnia and Herzegovina, Georgia and Kosovo, marked in pink, have applied but are not official candidates as of 2022. There is also the Council of Europe, with a confusingly similar flag established in 1949, with 46 member states marked in purple. Russia was expelled from the organization in 2022. Belarus, Kazakhstan and Kosovo are applicants for membership. It should also not be confused with the European Council within the European Union, but we won't go into that. The African Union was established in 2001, building on the Organization of African Unity established in 1963, and has 55 member states. Currently, 4 states, Sudan, Mali, Burkina Faso and Guinea, are suspended following military coups. All AU members are also members of the African Economic Community, focusing on increasing trade and creating a common currency in the future. It is based in many regional trade agreements. There are also some other regional organizations with observer status at the UN, like the Arab League, the Organization of American States, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the Pacific Islands Forum, and many, many more. Let us move on to Asia. ASEAN was established in 1967 and currently has 10 member states marked in gold and 2 observer states in white, Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization is including many massive nations in population and area, making it the largest, still regional organization in the world in both those aspects. Currently it has 8 members marked in orange, 2 acceding members in pink, 2 additional observer nations marked in yellow, and 9 so-called dialogue partners marked in white. The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, was established in 1989 and has 21 member economies, including Hong Kong and Taiwan, hence the use of the title member economy and not member state. Following the breakup of the Soviet Union, the Commonwealth of Independent States was established in 1993. The organization currently has 9 member states, marked in blue, Turkmenistan as an associate state, marked in light blue, Afghanistan and Mongolia as observer states in yellow. Ukraine and Georgia have de facto withdrawn from the organization. Speaking of Commonwealths, 56 nations are members of the Commonwealth of Nations, most former British territories, established in its current form in 1949. Charles III is king in 15 member states, the so-called Commonwealth realm, marked in gold, the rest marked in silver. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has 57 member states, covering around a quarter of the world's population. Most member states have a majority Muslim population, and there are a few observer states, marked in yellow. The Internationale de Francophonie has 54 full members, where French is a major language. There are an additional 7 associate members marked in orange, and 27 observer states in yellow. The organization was created in 1970. Let us move on to trade and economics. The International Monetary Fund has 190 member nations. Cuba, Liechtenstein, Monaco and North Korea are not members. For the World Bank, 189 members are listed, also excluding Andorra. Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, Vatican City and Palestine are not members of the World Bank. The World Trade Organization replaced the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, from 1948 in 1995. It has 164 members, including the EU, Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan. There are a bunch of observer states in various degree of negotiations for membership, marked in yellow. The OPEC, Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, was founded in 1960 and is made up of 13 member states and an additional so-called OPEC Plus partners that follows some of its agreements, marked in purple. Today, the organization, while still powerful, controls less than half of the world's oil production. And let's end on some major organizations that we have not covered yet. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a North American and European military alliance with 30 member states established in 1949. NATO also cooperates with many non-member states and considers Georgia, Ukraine and Bosnia-Herzegovina as potential future members. Sweden and Finland have been accepted as members by close to all current member states and is closest to joining the alliance. The Collective Security Treaty Organization is the Russian response to NATO, formed after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Currently, it has 6 full members. Serbia and Afghanistan are observer states, marked in yellow. Azerbaijan, Georgia and Uzbekistan have left the alliance. The so-called G7 includes Canada, the US, France, Germany, Italy, the UK, Japan and the EU. Russia was a member up until being expelled in 2014, then called the G8. It represents just 10% of the world's population, but 50% of its net wealth. The extended G20 accounts for 80% of the world's GDP and 2/3 of its population. Its members include the EU, and it was established in 1999. The so-called BRICS are made up of 5 emerging economies: Russia, Brazil, India, China and South Africa, and represent 40% of the world's population and around 26% of the world's GDP. The International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol, was established all the way back in 1923. Today 195 states and entities are members of Interpol, excluding North Korea, Palau, Tuvalu, Kosovo, Taiwan and Western Sahara. Speaking of fighting crime, let us move on to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, seated in The Hague, Netherlands, established in 2002. 123 states have ratified its so-called Rome Statute, marked in green. The nations marked in yellow has not yet ratified the agreement. The US and Russia are among the nations that have withdrawn their signature. And let's end on a close to universal, often overlooked global organization, the Universal Postal Union. All UN members, excluding Andorra, Marshall Islands, Micronesia and Palau, have agreed to its treaties. The organization, responsible for working postal transportation across the globe, was established in 1874.
Whether global cooperation will increase in the future, or if we stand at the beginning of a time with less successful global outreach, we can disagree on.
But peace and development are often established out of making friends with your neighbors first. And today, most of us are friends with our neighbors. So much so that we can feel for and say that our neighbors' problems are our problems. Even if that particular neighbor is located on the other side of the world.
I have more videos on my channel visualizing the global developmental trends. If you would like to become a member on my channel, it helps me out a lot. Thank you so much for watching.